Welcome to Fiery Femmes, the podcast for high-achieving women rewriting the rules of work, wealth, and their next chapter. I'm Sheena, and each episode gives you the strategies and mindset shifts to build a career and life aligned with freedom, not burnout. Let's get into it. Karis, thank you so much for being in the Fiery Femmes podcast. How is your week going?
My week is going lovely, thank you. A bit of a challenging week last week, so excited to chat and excited for the week ahead.
I know. Well, obviously, I've known you for a while now, since last year. You're an amazing product queen, head of product at Freely, and
Correct.
you've worked with a number of tech companies beforehand as well. Why don't you introduce yourselves to the audience? What do you do? And I guess what's in your wheelhouse?
Sure. So I am currently head of product at Freely. I have been in product for, way too long, since before I even really knew what product management was, and I was told I would be good at it. I have worked in large enterprise, in Qantas, where we had a $3 billion portfolio, really driving their agile and customer change, looking after innovation and mobile, which was a really exciting time where I got to really lead and scale teams rapidly. I've also then worked in scale ups. And now I sit in corporate venturing, where I am the head of product at Freely. And we really look to shift the travel insurance business to provide much more value to customers beyond just the paper that we provide in terms of claims management. So, how do we provide our customers with much more value for their, for interacting with us?
Yeah, absolutely. And before we dive into like the more career side of things, what is something on your LinkedIn or what is something that's not on your LinkedIn?
So I think not on my LinkedIn is really who I am as a person and my history. And I think that's really shaped who I am and what I want to achieve in this life and this world. Growing up, quite poor, getting handouts and, being raised by a single mum of 5 kids, which I think is, extraordinary. And that's just really shaped who I am, why I really care about changing the world for women, for making sure that women have a seat at the table in product and tech, and that we're really creating workplaces that help women parents, and I'm a solo parent, helping them thrive and be able to succeed in all aspects of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a powerful thing to be a single mom raising 5 kids. Like that is a CV in itself.
Yeah, yeah. In a very different time, right? So kudos
Yeah,
to her.
very different time. There's no Google Maps at the time. I can
Yeah.
There's no like Uber Eats delivery stuff to get the groceries delivered. Like that is
Yes, I haven't even thought about that. You were so right.
maybe that's why you're a great product leader. Awesome, awesome. Well, so what has made you decide into moving into like product as
I have to say, in my early days career, I wasn't really intentional about my career. I remember pulling majors out of hats at university. I recall really early on in my career, I worked in digital and print marketing, and I made this total stuff up in a guidebook I was putting to print. And at that moment, I was like, I can never do print. I need to be working in a area where I can change anything at any time. And so that's when I really pivoted into digital. And I've been there ever since. I think early days, it really wasn't that intentional. And as I've kind of grown in my career and also in my life, I place much more intention on how I manage my career and what's important in career and outside of career.
right? So definitely you've felt the pain of physical products and it being so hard to change if you do need to. And you're like, I think digital is for me.
Totally.
Yeah, I definitely felt that way. Had it was like our wedding and they had to, like the welcome sign.
I
And
do.
it got delivered weddings like in 3 days. And I'm just like, what do I do? I'll just cover that misspelling with like a flower or something. But yeah, no, that's a nightmare. But, it seems like you've had such an incredible career, for products, starting from like that, mishap with a guidebook.
Mm-hmm. Crazy how one, big failure in your career can really shift it for a lifetime.
Yeah, definitely. And because you mentioned that you weren't that intentional with like choosing a career path, I guess the same as me, to be honest.
Mm.
What would you say to those people who's probably listening to this and thinking, I actually still don't know what I want to do as well or my career? What would you tell them?
Look, I think we're told to know our career path very early on, and I think for some people, they know what they want and, it's been something in their mind from day dot. But I think so many of us don't really know what they want. I mean, I'm still evolving and learning, my purpose and what I want to bring to the world. So I would just encourage them to try different things, to listen to what parts of what they're doing they really enjoy and what parts of what they're doing drain their energy or just is not giving them joy or satisfaction in life. And just nudge your way into a career or role that starts to give more, that's more interesting, that lights you up, that you're doing more of what you like and start to really shape your career around those areas that lift you up and give you more joy. I think early on in my career, that was small things like moving from print to digital. Working in travel, I love to travel. So I was like, well, I'm going to get a product role in travel. And so it was really around trying to figure out how product management could be shaped in other areas that I was really interested in. So, if you don't have a clear passion, what are the things that you can just find a little bit more satisfaction in your career or test and learn? And I think the other thing is just don't be scared of trying something new. I think I have feared for a long time leaving the career that, is I've invested a long time in. But we live such long lives now. If you don't have a lot of pressures around, particularly around finances or family, and you're earlier in your career, I think you have a lot more capacity to try new things and be bold in pivoting to test and learn.
I love it. So, yeah, big advocate of testing, learning, and seeing which one you actually enjoy.
Totally.
And can you tell us more? I guess you already mentioned it a little bit about you love travel. So it sounds like you were quite intentional about choosing Qantas as
Yes,
step.
totally. Dream job at the time. Um, And yeah, I feel very blessed to have got that job. And I think at that time in my life, it was all around, well, I'm here to make people enjoy their lives more, to experience travel. And that was what really lit me up. And the work, we were doing great product, created new experiences across, mobile app. And we launched the first voice experience when Amazon Alexa hit the market. So really thinking about how do we help customers in their traveling journey? And I think something in my career that's always stood true is bringing that customer led thinking into businesses and organizations. And I think the second area is really, well, how do we constantly improve? We may be great, we may be the best team in agile and customer in this business, but what else can we do? So I think constantly having that view of let's improve, let's learn, let's grow as a team and individually.
Yeah, beautiful. And how did you get into Qantas? Did you like cold apply or was it a referral?
Yes, cold apply. I actually had applied for Qantas Loyalty many moons ago, and I was a second candidate and I didn't get that job, and I was so gutted. And then there was a long time in between, and I saw this role. It was a product management role at the time, and yeah, it was a cold application, and I was lucky enough to land the role, but it was really tight as well. So, by that time, I was number one, and someone obviously in my position in Qantas Loyalty didn't get the job, but he actually got a job later on. So it's interesting that persistence, and if it's something you really want, it may not happen the first time, and don't let that, slow you down or stop you on your path to try and land something that you really love.
That is such a beautiful message of sometimes you don't get it the first go, but you just have to persist. And if it's something that you really love.
Totally. And I think, especially in today's world, we think everyone has these really clear paths, and some people do have really clear paths, but I'd say they're probably the lucky ones. you know, Behind any successful person is so many ups and downs and bumps and failures, right? So yeah, just it's about persistence in thinking about, okay, well, I really want this. This is kind of my North Star, and being comfortable with those ups and downs until you do find that right. role for you?
Absolutely. I think yeah, a lot of people sometimes it's something that I also have to remember is you only really see the success because it's what gets celebrated, but you don't see the 99 times that they actually tried and failed to get that one success. So persistent.
Couldn't agree more.
Which product at Qantas would you say you're like the most proud of? I mean, if you can share.
It's so hard to pick one, right? Probably, I don't know if this is that exciting, but certainly launching international check-in digitally for the first time in Australia was a really big milestone, but also getting to work with people like, Amazon to build the first voice experience. And my team got to go to Cupertino to share our Apple Watch experience. So many big innovation highlights and the opportunity to work for a major brand where these big tech companies are really interested in the experiences you're creating and wanting to help you create the best experiences in the market was definitely a really big highlight.
Is amazing. So you're telling me that you're one of the people behind the experience of checking in internationally while I'm packing my bags a few days
Yeah.
before flying.
It's hard to believe that you couldn't do that once upon a time.
Literally, thank God for technology. It's crazy. What did we even do before the ability to check in a few days before so seamlessly too?
I'm sure we were very frustrated in very long lines.
Yeah. Maybe we also had more patience, I feel, at the
We
time.
probably did have more patience, I completely agree.
And from the outside, so how long were you at Qantas for?
I was there for 5 years
I
and sorry, you go.
Yeah, yeah, you go.
I think I had a lot of great opportunity. My career really accelerated at Qantas. I was giving new opportunity after new opportunity after new opportunity. And, I came on as a product manager and leading, one team. And I left looking after mobile innovation and managed a team of 70. So, that was probably a real acceleration of my career and really helped me get to where I am now.
That's a really good acceleration for 5 years as well.
Mm.
What would you say were vital to that success? What were you mindful of? And what would you say is in hindsight you should have thought of?
Yeah, I think being surrounded by great leaders at the time who really lifted me up and advocated for me was really important. I think a lot of it was luck. I came on when mobile apps were not important or lower in importance in Qantas. And then, mobile accelerated and I had the skills to then take on more innovation. So a lot of it was around my team was a natural fit to take on work and just taking it on with gusto and, rolling with the ups and the downs. So I'd say, yeah, great leadership and right time, right place in many cases. And, of course I worked really hard and I think I definitely brought my strengths around, how do businesses think about customer centricity? How do we deliver agile in large enterprises? And how can you really communicate and influence multiple different stakeholders and people within a business? I think the top 3 sort of strengths I brought to that role to help me succeed. And then in looking back around, well, what didn't I do well? I'm such a typical female, right? Work hard and expect to be recognized, take on more and expect that taking on more is going to give you that next role. And I think I missed a lot of opportunities when the business was smaller and I could have so many corridor conversations with the very senior executives and they were always saying hi, asking how my work was going. And I probably didn't lean into that and really share what I was achieving. I would be very humble and change the subject or chat about, some of the problems that I was having when actually there was so many strengths. So, I think certainly now in my career, I really realized the power of networks. And I probably found them icky back then. Like, I'm an introvert. I don't want to network. Like, I'd rather not be in that lift. And now I really realize how important having the people around you is, and that networking is about finding people that you've got shared alignment with and shared values. And when you find the alignment and the values, you can really take the ick factor out of it and go, okay, we're building real relationships here and I'm taking the right opportunities to build my credibility and my personal brand within this business.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, networking gets a bad rap, but I think people's perceptions are you go to an event, and you collect as many cards and names and add them onto your LinkedIn. Whereas, like, it's the exact opposite. You can just find one or two really valuable people that you actually connect with the most, and you go from there.
Yep. And you're so right. I'm that traditional go into a cold room and meet people where it really doesn't have to be like that. And I think to your point, you only need one or two people who really believe in you that, have that seat at the table a couple of ranks above you that can really change your trajectory.
And it's good to hear as well that while, it's something that I have also done before, that if I just like hit my metrics, it speaks for itself. And looking back, it's, I should have promoted myself more, marketed myself more.
Mhm.
And I guess like that's something that we can share to the wider audience.
Yeah, totally. And at Qantas, I was really good at that. Not necessarily because I wanted to, but because they had a big culture of showcases. And so I would have to share our work in very large auditoriums. So whilst I wasn't naturally necessarily leaning into that, and I think I could have unlocked a lot more career potential by building those relationships early, I was pushed into the position where I had to constantly share our great work to very large audiences at all levels. So I was naturally through the culture, building that credibility, building the success of the outcomes our team were achieving through those forums, which are really part of Qantas's culture at the time.
And you mentioned earlier that you're a natural introvert, and
Mhm.
speaking in big crowds, big auditoriums where like all eyes are on you, that must have been nerve wracking.
Oh, it was horrendous. I remember when I first started and a product manager was presenting in this huge auditorium, and I was like, there's no way I can do that. Like, oh my God. But then by the end, it just becomes so natural because you're building your reps, you're practicing, you're putting yourself out of your comfort zone, and it just becomes so normalized. I also used tools and techniques to have to not present as much, like an awesome video or, showcasing the amazing talents of my team because I was a less natural position for me to be in. But I do believe, I remember when I was really early in my career at Fairfax, we did this public speaking course and I couldn't even think, right? I was like so far out of my flywheel. And now I still get the nerves and jitters and I still, get that level of anxiety for really important meetings. But just from practice, from repetition, from challenging yourself to be in positions that you are not naturally comfortable in, it definitely helps you, find a space where you're comfortable.
Absolutely. And would you say that how many times did you practice before, like, let's say like a big product launch and you're going to be in the stage, all eyes on you? Do you have a specific number of like times that you're going to practice
Mhm.
by yourself in your lounge?
Yeah, I mean, I think it took me a long time to learn that people practice. I thought, oh, everyone just gets up there and they do really well. I would practice 3 times. Like,
Same
I think
number.
by the time you do 3, well, for me, 1, I'm fumbling. I'm like, I can't read my notes. The second one, it's, pretty good. And the third one, I know my message. So 3 tends to work for me.
Yeah. Amazing. So there you go. We both have our magic number.
Yeah. What's your magic number?
3 is also like my number of
Awesome. Must
I
be something in it.
yeah, definitely the rule of 3, right? But yeah, if I can do it 3 times without notes, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, well, that's so good. Well, a bit of a change in gear,
Mhm.
your journey in like the solo parenting and how you've seen the systemic gaps in women,
Mhm.
around that. Can you tell us more about your experience in, I guess, like the solo parenting and the systemic gaps for women?
Yeah, sure. So I've always been a really big advocate for women and, helping to change that and bring equity into the workforce. But becoming a solo parent, and I'm an only parent, it's just my mind is blown daily on how much this world is not made for solo parents and how much there's assumptions that solo parents have a backup parent that can help them. So, little examples like at work, I have asked for meetings to be in working hours, training meetings, and been told to, organize that with your partner, who obviously I don't have a partner. If I'm commuting into the office, my commute to work is 2 hours and I physically could not be in an office from 9 to 5 with childcare and school before school, after school care hours. It's just actually impossible. The maths don't add up, right?
Okay.
And so, I think it's just there's so much that just does not work for parents, but specifically for solo parents. And, honestly, we have come so far in customer experiences, in how technology has advanced, in that, AI is here. In my career, the iPhone dropped, We have evolved so much in our lifetimes and we have embraced cultural change, technology change, how we work. But for some reason, we still sit in this workplace design and that just has not really fundamentally shifted. And obviously, COVID was a really big disruption moment. But I've certainly found now, a few years out of COVID, that a lot of those changes that that helped parents and solo parents are being rolled back, or it's really a lot harder to find them. The part-time roles, the really flexible workplaces, organizations that don't have return to office mandates, and so in so many instances, the working world is setting women and solo parents up to fail. And we have everything in our toolkits that mean we don't have to be excluding solo parents from the workforce. We can make it a place that parents and solo parents can thrive. We have everything that we need, yet businesses are not innovating or disrupting as fast as they can and should be, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's such an interesting angle as well because you're right. Like with it started with going back to the office once a day, twice. I mean, once a week, twice a week. Now it's at least 3 days. I know that they're on site only
Mhm.
workplaces as well. So yeah, we're definitely just going back to how it was.
100% we are. Even things like post-COVID, finding a company that would agree to a 4-day working week was quite easy. I would say 90% of organizations would say, of course. Now I'm finding that's more like 10%. And that's my anecdotal experience from people out reaching out to me around roles. This real inflexibility to cater for different working rhythms to support different types of people being in different roles, which I think is really disappointing. And ultimately, most women will get these adjustments if they've been in the organization for a while and they've earned that right, for want of a better word. But I think there's this real opportunity to think about, well, if we're going to give it to someone who's been in the business for 5 years and has been achieving these outcomes, why aren't we giving it to people who, why aren't we designing that into the role from the start so that we attract a bigger pool of talent, particularly in tech? We know women over 40 are leaving. We know that there's some work to do around equity and getting more females into this particular field. If all businesses were designing roles at the start to allow for inclusivity and role design that suits different people at different stages of life, I think we would just have such a better opportunity to attract new talent into technology.
Yeah, and that's such an interesting insight that more women over 40 are leaving the tech industry.
Mm.
Is I think I saw that on your post earlier. Is that like a new
Yeah, I can't remember exactly when it was launched, but the Tech Council of Australia did some research into this. So it's relatively recent, around, what is happening? Why are women exiting the workforce within the tech sector and particularly ones with technical skills at a faster rate than men? And there's a lot of reasons, but certainly a big one that we can point to is caring responsibilities. And then if I add my solo parent lens on, everything is getting 10 times harder, particularly if you don't have a co-parent. But even if you do have a co-parent, you're still with them, whatever the shared care arrangement is, you still have to manage that on your own with limited support.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I can imagine as well paid care if you're gonna hire like a sitter, anything like that. They're pretty expensive, I find in Australia and Sydney in general.
Yeah, it's not, you know, it's impossible unless you're in a very good financial position, like extraordinary financial position, I would say.
Yeah. I also find that how I'm like thinking, oh my God, like the ability to trust someone as well. If it's not family, the ability to trust someone like for your kids is pretty hard. So it's like putting parents in that position of and you have to pay money to someone so that you can work these hours, but also like somehow you have to give them this trust that
Yeah,
your kids are going to be okay. So yeah, it definitely puts solo parents in such a difficult position.
yeah, definitely.
And for you, in an ideal world, how would you design like the new workplace?
I mean, big question. And obviously, I don't have all the answers. I think, innovation we need different minds coming together to really think about what could this look like and what is our North Star. But I think it's interesting, right? Because I actually think there are a lot of things that we can do today that are not, they're not groundbreaking. They're super simple. Can we think about, I've got a really amazing thought leader, Dr. Ford, has a movement called hashtag work school hours. And she's advocating for things like, let's just adjust meetings. So meetings start at 9:30, not 9. Let's have core hours. We're living in a time where we can do a lot of asynchronous work. So maybe businesses adopt core hours from 10 to 2, and then we do async outside of that. What I mentioned earlier, let's design roles. If we're going to give someone a adjustment to a role like part-time, flexible, job share, different hours, let's put that in the role from the start. Like, let's let every role start from the lens of inclusivity. And so you don't have to earn this right to get special treatment, because it's not special treatment. We're still expecting the same outcomes. We're still expecting, the same impact to the business. But let's open doors through job applications. And I really think that will help women move into senior roles too. Because if we think about the C-suite, a lot of people are like, well, I want to get there. I have the ambition to move up, to have a seat at the table, but I am not willing to never be able to see my kids after school, to, have to work 80-hour weeks. There's this real perception of what that looks like. And I think if we can really think about what great looks like for parents, solo parents, and honestly, I'm sure the younger generation who want a different working world, then I think we can increase wellbeing, increase retention, attract amazing talent. We have a talent shortage in Australia, particularly moving with the AI generation. How are we going to get all of these people into tech? Something needs to shift. And I think there's some ideas, but I'm sure there are brighter brains in this world that can come together and really rethink the workplace. There's great research as well around the 4-day work week, right? That we're getting the same outcomes with a 4-day rhythm, higher wellbeing, higher retention, better connection to family, be that doesn't have to be kids, your broader family and community. And so it's time to take some of these things seriously and really go all in as a society, in my humble opinion.
Well, if you think about it, right, apparently back in the days, we used to all work 7 days a week, which I'm like, cannot comprehend. But, maybe we're just a few decades away from hopefully not a full on decade, but I can certainly see that more and more companies are seeing, what, if we can just focus, concentrate, and have all of our work done in 4 days, why not?
Yeah, 100%. And, I remember when I was at Qantas, actually, I hired this amazing product manager. And at the time, she negotiated for a 4-day work week and 1 day working at home. So she was 3 days in the office, 1 day at home and 1 day off. And so, paid at 80% pro rata salary, right? But she was my highest performer in her 4 days, delivered the best outcomes, delivered over and above, was my, second in command, for want of a better term. And yet she was given an 80% salary, 80% bonus, even though, so on paper, if we're compensating by hours, she was paid the least. If we were compensating on outcomes, she should have been the highest paid person in the room. So I think the paying by hours is hopefully will change in the future, but it certainly doesn't equate to impact or the outcomes that people are contributing to businesses.
Absolutely. I think I'm a big fan of performance metrics anyway. I've never really been paid per hour. I've seen the light when it comes to performance-based payments. But it's if you're in touch, she's probably still killing it. And
Oh, she is.
yeah. I mean, for someone to actually negotiate at the time, to negotiate the way that she negotiated, I think.
And I felt so uncomfortable. This is pre-COVID, right? And pre me being a parent. I was like, what? She wants that? But I was like, okay, let's trial it. So we're always going to feel discomfort when we do new things. Even I feel discomfort as this big advocate for changing the working world. But just sit with that discomfort and give it a crack. Trial, experiment, test, and see what outcomes your business delivers because of it. But it will feel uncomfortable.
There you go. It is very uncomfortable to ask for something, but She got it in the end. You were uncomfortable. She was probably uncomfortable. And I think when you're negotiating at a new role, at a potentially new role as well, it's like, what if they take the offer back?
Yeah. But
So
if you're the person, you're the person. Go for it.
no, that's it. And speaking of discomfort, I know that we talked earlier a little bit about like social media, about showing up on LinkedIn, on social media. And when every time that we do it, there is something that shows up, like an opportunity presents itself. I'd love to talk a little bit on the comparison in the social media age, but also how we foster gratitude to kind of like combat that. How do you cultivate gratitude while still allowing yourself to like dream big and I guess like have this ambition set for yourself?
Mm. I think it's really hard, right? What are we striving for and what is our North Star? But how we're comfortable in the now. And it can be really contrasting. And I'm certainly someone who's always thinking, what next, what next, what next? And I've had to really learn to be content with where I am now. And, for me, the gratitude practice, which is very evidence based, it's not, I think we probably still think it's very woo woo and it doesn't actually have any scientific benefit to it. But actually, there's a lot of evidence that says that gratitude practice can be really supportive of your well being. And so I do gratitude in many ways. I've had a gratitude journal in the past. I don't use one now, but what I found through that experience was it shows themes that really bring more happiness into your life. So, and they're usually quite small. For me, it's getting to the beach, having a coffee in the morning, spending time with my family. And so, we might have these big dreams for a bigger house, a pool, whatever it is. But actually the things that bring us contentment will show up in our gratitude journal and we can do things that are really achievable now. But now I use gratitude more in just reminding myself of what I have. I have two amazing children. We have a home. We live by the beach. And just, in the age of social media, in the age of all of these things that we think we can have, I think it's really important to recognize what we have now and remind ourselves that, we are lucky. Yes, my family's gone through a lot of grief, but a lot of people don't have kids and they want kids, and I have my children. And so really being grateful for those things that we do have in life, I think is really important. And I also try to cultivate in my daughter, and I just ask her every night, what are you grateful for today? Or what put a smile on your face today? And she'll often be like, Mum, like, I don't know. But I'll still do it because it'll just help to bring that appreciation into a little ritual in our family.
I think definitely gratitude is so big. It's yes, it's woo woo, but to your point, there's like some studies in it. The more that you're thankful about things, the more you actually see the good things in your life as
Mhm.
well. And for people who are religious, what I've noticed is typically they're more one, they're happier, which is a win-win, but they always have more to give. They know that there's more to come. Um,
Mm.
it's because I mean, their gratitude is, praying. So,
Mm.
I come from my parents are quite religious, and they pray, like, for meals, I guess, like, what they do as well when they wake up and then before going to sleep, and that's usually the format of a prayer is, like, being thankful, acknowledging what we currently have, like, for food,
Mm.
and then I guess, like, asking for what's next. So
Yeah,
you
I
have
love that.
that gratitude ingrained almost in their lifestyle.
Yeah. And that's a ritual for, there's a ritual that may work for religious people around prayer, which is amazing. And then it's for what works in your life. If you're religious, amazing. Maybe having a more format to that, how you pray. And if you're a non religious, it's like, well, a journal, a little ritual in your family, just something that you think about, every morning. Building those habits around making sure you're recognizing what you do have and the abundance in your life, even if and we don't all have great lives, but there's always a nugget in there, instead of focusing on what we don't have. And I think in the era of social media, it's so easy to be focused on what we don't have.
Yeah. And I always tell myself as well, it's like maybe that person doesn't actually even own that house or own that Lambo.
Uh, yeah.
So it's pretty good.
My financial planner often tells me that, right? Like a lot of people who look really wealthy on paper, it's debt. It's the loan for the amazing car or the huge mortgage. And so you don't ever know what's going on under the surface. As we said earlier, there's the glossy version. You don't know, how people got there. So run your own race if you can.
What a beautiful message. Thank you for that. I think, again, like that just resonates to a lot of people, what you see on social media, but also what do you actually have that you should pay attention to and be grateful?
Yeah, and what's important to you, right? Like, how are you designing a life around what you want? It's so easy to have social comparison, but we're going to strive for things that maybe are not even important to us. And so I think that's really individual around finding what really gives us joy and purpose in life.
Absolutely. And as we, I guess, like getting close to wrapping things up, I would love to hear about, I guess, you've been in tech for a while now and you've seen all the changes. It was super lucky to see a lot of things like the iPhone launch, COVID, the changes in mobile and innovation, and now AI. What advice would you give to 20-year-olds today?
Yeah, I think for me, I would spend time curating my network and building relationships with people. I think is part one. I think network, especially in today's world, is often as important as, doing all the work. I think particularly for women, one thing I did earlier in my career is do all the work really hard, take on extra work and grow your scope. And I think that can be great, but that doesn't always lead to the right outcome for you. Because if the work you're taking on is not promotable or it's not seen as valuable, it's like the busy work, not the important work, well, you're still not going to be recognized and maybe move up in your career like you'd like to. So I'd be mindful of the type of work I take on, thinking about if I've got capacity to do more, make that work impactful for you and for your personal goals in career and life.
I would love to double down on this for our women listeners. One of, I would say, the mistakes that I did, and I loved it at the time, but looking back, do I need to be in the party planning committee at LinkedIn?
No.
Exactly, exactly. Was that a promotable thing? Was that a credit thing? No, but you see it all the time, almost all the time, the party planning committee of whatever companies, of whatever like organization of the business that doesn't actually move the needle for the business. It's almost usually women.
Mhm.
So let's not
Here.
do that.
One of my biggest bugbears. Exactly, and if you love it, fine, but if you are thinking about how you contribute, value your time and invest it in the areas that get you where you need to get to, and that might be in career. It actually might just be that you have another half hour to go to the gym. So value your time and spend it in areas that will get to your end goal.
I love it. Great advice. Great advice. And I know that you are building a wait list. Tell us what you're going to be up to in the next few weeks or in the next few months.
Yeah, sure. So I will continue on my corporate career as head of Project Freely. I'm loving what I'm doing at the moment. But I'm also really keen to spend more time doing what I really love and again lean into my purpose. So I will be opening a waitlist shortly, really helping product managers, product designers, and tech, mid to senior in their career to really elevate into leadership roles through coaching, through building capabilities, and some other exciting things coming soon. So, yeah, if you want to know more, jump on and find me on LinkedIn, and the waitlist will be ready very soon. I'm very excited. So, I'm
So
excited. Thank you.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Karis, for joining us. And we will see you shortly.
Beautiful. So much fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.